Welcome all. I'm Sarah Bumgardner with AAFMAA, the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. Since 1879, we have been serving our military community to be the premier provider of financial solutions for the armed forces. And as the Director of Partnership and Member Engagement, I work with other nonprofit organizations about what they are doing to help our service members, their families, veterans, and the military community at large. And today we're going to be talking about the Exceptional Family Member Program, also known as EFMP. This is a Department of Defense program to support service members who have special needs children. But what does that mean? So, we are talking to a subject matter expert in this, Michelle Norman. She is the executive director and founder of Partners in Promise, an organization focused on protecting the rights of military children in special education and disability communities. Michelle, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me. It is always an honor to chat with you guys, and I just love what AFMA does to really, engage our community, both the military and veteran community. So thank you for everything that you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's talk about EFMP. This is kind of a big subject, right? So we're going to dive into it. And
Sounds great.
I kind of wanted to start with what does it mean to have a child with disabilities and be in the military and be a military family?
And that's a really great question because I think a lot of us, when we think about the military, most servicemen and women, I think, join the military when they're young, right? And most of them don't have kids when they start off. They have a duty to serve. They go see the world, all the wonderful things. They meet somebody, and then eventually, hopefully they'll be able to start a family. And so, but it's not really on the top of their minds when they first join the military. But I always say, all children are gifts, and nothing can really prepare you for starting a family. But when you do find out that you have a child with special needs, it's just one of those life-changing moments, as if with any child. And there's complications, right, when it comes to being in the military and dealing with this, new diagnoses, or just your expectations are a little bit different. And of course, there's a grieving process for many families, regardless military or not, just, knowing that things might be a little bit more difficult. But then you put on this, highly mobile military lifestyle on top of that. And then you know that a lot of work has to be done in order to make sure that you can meet the needs of your child. And, of course, the obvious, right? You're not anywhere near a support system as your military. A lot of folks in the civilian community, have that built-in support, grandmother, aunt, or whatever can come help out. But we don't have that as a military. And so I think, obviously those who live overseas, the friends and people in your squadron or the unit, they become your family. But it is very difficult because all of a sudden now you have to deal with making sure that your child's needs are met, whether it be medically, educationally, emotionally. And so it can be, difficult on a military family.
Yeah, it can be. And you speak about this professionally and personally. I mean, you are a military spouse. For anyone who does not know Michelle and how wonderful she is a military spouse. She does have a child with special needs. So she has personally had to navigate and go through this, which is how Partners in Promise came to be. Because it was, hey, there's got to be a better way, more resources, a support system for this because it's not easy. And so I love that you can, speak about this from a personal standpoint because it is very personal. And like you said, there is not a lot of support. And so if you can have that support network and find a place like Partners in Promise that can give you that support, that can be tremendous for our military families. So
Absolutely.
when we talk about EFMP, and we talk about being in the military, there can be a stigma associated to that. And I want to kind of open that up, right? And let's just talk about it.
Let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off, okay?
Let's talk about the awkward and walk through that because somebody out there might be listening and feeling this, right? And so let's be a resource and a help. So walk through kind of what the stigma that is associated with being an EFMP family can be.
Right. Okay. So, well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about EFMP and what that is. we're very fortunate that DoD has this great, program available for families who do have children with disabilities. And it's called the Exceptional Family Member Program. It is a mandatory program that is there to ensure that military families move, because we do move every 2 to 3 years typically, to locations that can have the appropriate medical or educational support for the children or the dependents. Because right, it's not always the children.
Yeah.
Sometimes EFMP does encompass, a spouse, and so we recognize that. And so the EFMP program is there to support, to make sure that you're not moved to some very remote location that maybe doesn't have any specialist available medically, or overseas too. That's kind of the problem that we see sometimes with the stigma, is that some families are very, I guess I could say, want to go to certain places, right? That
Mhm.
may not be able to have the right facilities in place for the member who's in the EFMP program. And I think that's where a little bit of the stigma goes. Like, okay, my spouse may not be able to progress career wise because we can't go to XYZ installation, because my child is an EFMP status, 4 or 5. And we hear that a lot. And I would say, first of all, there are so many families out there, including mine, who have served 25, 30 years within the EFMP program. So career progression can happen. It may not always be, the Italy or, South Korea, maybe, but there are ways to continue going forward in the EFMP program. The other thing I would love to mention too is that there are so many benefits from the EFMP program that there really shouldn't be a stigma for enrolling. And I will say this, 1,000 times about their respite care program. If it wasn't for that respite care program, we would not be here today, because I know that I would not have been able to have balanced life as a caregiver, as a spouse, and a mom, all of those, all wrapped in one. There's no way we probably would be able to have stayed in this long, almost 30 years without the respite care program. So it's really difficult to say what if there are myths still going around about the EFMP
Yeah.
program. They have definitely improved it over the years. They
Mhm.
just did a new standardization last June that will help with disenrollment and standardizing that. I know that has been an issue for some families, like, oh, once you get in the program, you can't get out. Well, now it's been standardized. And so it's very transparent now, what, maybe you were dealing with something on a very temporary basis.
Mhm.
And now it's going to be easier to hop off the program and open up some of those choices for some of those families. So I think standardization has really helped through the years. And I know that they're working constantly to try to make the EFMP program better. So again, try not to listen to other folks. I know that there's still that myth of like, this is going to really hurt your career. But I can tell you, I know so many people who have continued, and we know that families want to stay in once they're in. We know that through our surveys. And so the EFMP program is there to really help them.
Yeah. And that's important. Part of what Partners in Promise does is collect data, right? From
That's right.
EFMP families to say, hey, what are your needs? What's being met? What's not being met? Which is why if you are an EFMP family, or you feel like you might be an EFMP family, but you don't know where to start, or things like that, there's right Partners in Promise can help you navigate that, as well as make sure that you're being heard, right, within
That's
advocacy. And so I want to take a pause for anybody who is listening and who might have a question. Please feel free to drop that in the comments box. I neglected to say that ahead of time, but of course, please, if you have any questions, drop that in the comments box. And I want to, because we hear a lot about kind of IEPs and 504 plans and things like that. And so there are a lot of challenges associated with being a highly mobile, right, family, which is
yes.
what military families are, right? We all know that. We are highly mobile. And so I want to talk about kind of what that looks like when you have, right, these plans in place, and then you all of a sudden have to move, and you have this
Yeah.
healthcare in place, and then you all of a sudden have to move. What can people do to make that easier?
Well, so you're absolutely right. There are a lot of moving parts every time you're preparing for a PCS. And we know we're PCSing every 2 to 3 years. And on average, I think there has been research that shows that, children attend anywhere between 6 to 9 schools, from like kindergarten all the way through graduation. So that's a lot of change of routine, change of medical care that's happening each and every point along that journey. And of course, even more difficult for those who do have those unique needs. And so, Obviously every time we move, your EFMP case manager is going to change immediately. That's your number one POC on the duty station that can help you know what resources are available within the local community and within DoD. So there you go. You're already starting to meet anew. And the great thing about that standardization I just mentioned about in June of 2023 is that they're actually standardizing a warm handoff. Thank you. Which will help where it's wonderful. You can go to your current EFMP case manager when you get some orders in hand, and you can say, I'm moving to Florida and I would love a warm handoff. Of course, this is voluntary. They will have you fill out a family needs assessment, which is also voluntary. But then that enables that case manager to call or contact at least the next EFMP duty station manager and say, hey, I have this family coming. Here's some things that you might be interested in. They may need to get on a wait list for housing that is ADA accessible. They may want to put them on the respite care program wait list. There are a lot of ways that they can assist with that transition. And so, again, improvements are happening with this whole standardization process. But it is difficult, I will say. We know from Partners and Promises from previous surveys that there are delays. There are delays, of receiving that medical care. Upwards of 5 months. The same thing with receiving those supports and services in those individualized education programs called IEPs, on average around 5.75 months. And so these are really critical challenges for our families, because when you get to a new location, you're already, trying to get your household together. You're trying to make appointments with different doctors and specialists, but it may take 4 or 5 months. These could be very serious type of services that your child really needs to function. It could be ABA therapy. It could be, for school, your one-on-one, aid at school, or even bus transportation. So these are things that we're recognizing that our families are reporting. And so how can we make it better? And that's really what Partners in Promise has been really trying to do, is to take that data. What are some data-informed solutions that we can equip our families to be able to manage and thrive in this military life?
Yeah, and it's so important, and you laid it out so nicely, right? That these families are moving and they have these individual plans and they have this healthcare, and all of a sudden a family is told, "Well, sorry, it's going to take 2 months to get you in," and you're like, "Well, I'm sorry, but my kid can't wait 2 months," and that's stressful. There's already stress going on with the move, and so I love kind of the information that you've been able to provide these families that warm handoffs are now available, and something that is reachable for them to be able to say, "Hey, I can get a head start right at the next
Right.
location."
Right.
So that I'm not so behind, or if that feeling of being behind, which kind of leads me to, what are some best practices to be your child's best advocate?
So I think the first thing I would say on that is you need to be engaged. You need to learn everything about your child's needs,
Mhm.
whether that be researching on their medical diagnoses or understanding what their individualized education program entails and all the ins and outs of that. You need to ask questions and really just be engaged as the parent, to be a good advocate. The other thing I would say also is that we need to be asking questions. And
Mm,
I think that's sometimes hard because we always respect authority and we kind of like, okay,
yeah,
okay, just, nod your head. Yes, that sounds great. But, we kind of need to be a squeaky wheel. If you're going to be a good advocate, and we know your child's amazing, your child's amazing, but
mhm,
sometimes we need to assume that not everyone understands your child's needs, or maybe they don't have their best interests at heart. So don't be afraid to ask for second opinions or ask questions, kind of follow up. I didn't quite understand this. And so you have to kind of be a more proactive when it comes to this situation. And that's really with any child, but even more so with one that has special needs. Do your homework, be prepared, be organized. And that's where those wonderful special needs binders come in handy. I remember one of my friends talked to me just recently, and she's like, when I met you 4 years ago, I remember being in a coffee shop with you and we were hole punching all of these important legal documents from my son's IEP. And I didn't realize it at the time. But now she walks into these, meetings as a boss. Like people
right.
stand up, they see her with their binder, even her doctors, her son's doctors, take her seriously. Like she's
Mhm,
got her documents in place. She
yeah.
knows what she needs to ask, and she can be an active participant and really collaborate and partner with these different teams. And that's what we want, right? It's just for our children to be able to thrive, independent, productive
Yep.
members of society. What can we do to advocate better for them? And being organized is really big because we do get stacks of paperwork. A
Mhm.
lot of it's from legal,
Mhm.
laws that they need to be followed at the state and federal level. And so, really, what can we do to give these families, as much support as possible so they can be active and help their child out to receive a great education, to receive appropriate medical care, and so they can become, have wonderful opportunities as they become an adult.
Yeah, and you've touched on it, and so I'm going to circle back to the organization piece of this because Partners in Promise has is an amazing resource. I mean, truly amazing, where you can do a customizable special needs binder. You can answer a set of questions, and it will generate for you. Here is what you need to do. Here is an IEP checklist. Here is a 504 plan checklist. Here's where you need to start. It's something that even AFMA realized we were not engaging our membership in. And so we did a wonderful collaboration and partnership with Partners in Promise to be able to co-brand this checklist to say, hey, let's get this out there. But the real golden ticket is this binder. And so talk to me a little bit more about where people can go. And I think we've got a picture of that binder to direct
Yay!
and what
That's
they
great.
expect in this
I
because
just love it.
it's like it's not a little binder. It's like 70,
No, it's not. I have
long.
one here. So, but the great thing, it's free. Okay, so
Yes.
it's free and it's downloadable at
Good.
thepromiseact.org/binder. And so
Mhm.
really this is the tool, just one more tool in their toolbox, right, to be able to effectively advocate for their children. And it really does lay out everything a family would need when they PCS from one duty station, one school to another, because you can put every single document that's legal or will help with registration at that new school. Even your TRICARE and EFMP point of contacts would go in this binder. And I know that may seem like, oh, well, everyone keeps that information. Not really, because when you're in the mix of the PCS, there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. You have, obviously the PCS information, perhaps you're working. And so you have so many wickets to happen, but this kind of keeps everything together for that child with special needs. And we love it because it is kind of modeled with the federal law in mind. So as you go through it, these are different pieces that are, regulated through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, it's IDA, or if you have a 504 plan, it's from Section 504 of the Rehabilitative Services Act. And so there's so many wonderful things within this that will help that family, help that child go through their IEP, make sure they're on top of their goals, ensuring all the services and supports are in place at that new duty station. And it just really, again, helps that family, keep all their data in one place, and be able to effectively advocate the way they should. And so I really recommend that families go and download this. You can download it every school year. If you're able to attend a workshop, we actually give hard copies of this at a workshop at your local EFMP duty station. If you have not seen one at your duty station, ask them to do it, to get in touch with us. We would love to help out. But really, this is to give parents all the information about their students' rights, and what they're afforded to in school, to ensure that they can, again, be the best they can be and be able to graduate with a standard diploma. That's really what we want for all of our children. And we look forward to having people come out. You can also contact me, at Michelle@partnersinpromise.org or at info@partnersinpromise.org, and we will help out if you're having problems trying to figure out which binder may be best for you. But thank you to AFMA, though, for working with us and getting this to your community. A lot of folks with special needs, sometimes feel like they're not heard. And so this is wonderful for you to recognize that they exist. They're
Mhm.
just tired and overburdened, but hopefully we
Yeah.
can give them tools like this to help them navigate this wonderful world. I would never change anything. I love my children so very much, and it's given me a new purpose in life. But it definitely helps to have some helping hands in the community.
It really does. And that's exactly what Partners in Promise is doing. And so we're so fortunate to have you as a resource, right? Because
Thank
in the
you.
military community, it's kind of all about what's in your toolkit and what resources are out there. And if you don't know, right, then you don't. you don't know where to go. So it all starts with asking questions, and this is such a wonderful resource for our EFMP families. And as Michelle said, you can go right here. You can customize this binder. You can reach them through this website, right? They have a great place where you can put in your contact information or subscribe to things that they're talking about in the EFMP world, where there's different legislation that's happening, or these great new things that are the DoD is starting to recognize they need to provide for EFMP families. So
Exactly.
check this out. I want to thank you so much, Michelle, for bringing your expertise, for bringing your passion and dedication to this, and providing this for all of our EFMP families.
It's an honor, really, to be here and to be able to support these families and to support our military service community. So we really appreciate the partnership and look forward to continuing to get this great support out there to these families.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Sarah Bumgardner, and that will wrap up our AFMA Live for today. If you would like more information about AFMA and financial readiness within the military community, you can, of course, subscribe right here to the QR code. If you happen to be listening on your phone, we will drop this in the comment section, as well as all the other links we have talked about. But I thank you for joining, and I hope that you have a great day.